In 1892, in the quiet Argentine town of Necochea, a brutal crime shook the Pampas and changed criminal investigation forever. It was a case of jealousy, deception, and cold-blooded murder, but it would also give birth to a new science, fingerprint identification. This is the story of the Francisca Rojas case, the world's first conviction based on a fingerprint, and the moment forensic science began to move from torture and confessions to evidence and truth.
On June 29, 1892, tragedy struck a modest home in Necochea. Two young children, 6-year-old Ponciano and 4-year-old Feliza, were found dead. Their mother, 27-year-old Francisca Rojas, lay nearby with a shallow knife wound on her neck.
Rojas told police a horrific tale. A rejected suitor, a ranch worker named Pedro Velasquez, had attacked her and murdered her children in revenge. The story fit every stereotype investigators expected: a violent man, a spurned lover, and a grieving mother. Velasquez was quickly arrested. Police didn't look for evidence. They sought only a confession. He was beaten, tortured, even tied overnight to the corpses of the murdered children. Yet, he never confessed because he was innocent. His friends confirmed he had been with them that night. The case was stuck. The only suspect had an alibi. The authorities needed help, and soon a revolutionary method would provide it. At the time, the most advanced identification system was the Bertillon method, a series of body measurements like head size, arm span, and finger length. It was slow, complicated, and useless at a crime scene. Enter Juan Vucedic, a Croatian immigrant working as a police statistician in La Plata, Buenos Aires. Inspired by the research of English scientist Francis Galton, Vucedic began experimenting with fingerprints. By 1891, he had already created the first fingerprint files and developed a classification system he called dactyloscopy.
Dactyloscopy is the scientific study of fingerprints and friction ridge patterns to establish identity. Used in forensics, missing persons cases, and identity verification. The term comes from the Greek daktylos, which is finger, and scopine means to observe.
Juan Vucedic, a Croatian-born Argentinian police official, created the first practical fingerprint identification system. In 1892, he pioneered its use in a murder case, proving fingerprints sufficient for identification. His 1904 work Dactyloscopia Comparata spread the method worldwide, especially in Spanish-speaking countries. Sir Francis Galton was a British scientist who established the scientific basis of fingerprint identification. Building on earlier observations, he proved their uniqueness and permanence, created a classification system, and provided the foundation for modern forensic dactyloscopy.
Meanwhile, back in Necochea, Inspector Eduardo Alvarez was sent to re-examine the Rojas home. Unlike the local police, Alvarez looked carefully. On the bedroom doorframe, he spotted a faint brown stain, a bloody thumbprint. Realizing its importance, Alvarez cut the entire piece of wood from the door and brought it back to La Plata. For the first time in history, a fingerprint from a crime scene would be scientifically compared to living suspects. At police headquarters, the bloody thumbprint was compared against ink samples. First, against Velasquez, no match. Science cleared the man who torture could not break.
No match.
Next, the sample was compared to Francisca Rojas herself. The match was perfect. The print belonged to her, the grieving mother who was, in fact, the killer. Confronted with this irrefutable proof, Rojas's story collapsed. Unlike human testimony, a fingerprint could not be intimidated or deceived. Faced with the bloody mark of her own thumb, she confessed.
The motive was chilling. Her new lover wanted nothing to do with children, seeing them as obstacles. Rojas murdered her son and daughter and tried to frame an innocent man.
Francisca Rojas was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But her case became far larger than one crime. It proved to the world that fingerprints were not just curiosities, they were infallible witnesses. Argentina became the first nation to adopt fingerprinting as its official identification method, replacing Bertillon's system entirely. Within years, the practice spread worldwide. Juan Vucetic's classification system laid the foundation for the fingerprint databases we still use today. And Inspector Alvarez's discovery marked the true beginning of modern forensic investigation. The principles proven in Necochea remain pillars of criminalistics. Fingerprints are unique, permanent, and can link a person to a crime scene beyond doubt. From one bloody thumbprint in 1892 grew a global science, one that still helps us distinguish truth from lies more than a century later. The Francisca Rojas case reminds us the human body leaves behind its own testimony. And sometimes that silent witness can speak louder than any words.
Today, the historic building that housed the Central Police of the province of Buenos Aires in 1892 still stands in La Plata. This is the same headquarters where Inspector Eduardo Alvarez worked during the investigation of the Francisca Rojas case, and where Juan Vucetic inaugurated the world's first fingerprint identification bureau in 1891. Originally located on Kale 2, between streets 51 and 53. The building's facade has been preserved remarkably well. Today, it serves as the headquarters of the Ministry of Security of the province of Buenos Aires, and its address remains unchanged: Cerros, entre Avian 51 y 53, La Plata, Buenos Aires, Argentina.
How does fingerprint analysis work today? Step 1. Collecting prints. A forensic investigator dusts a smooth surface like a glass table with black powder to reveal a hidden fingerprint. The print slowly becomes visible under the brush. The investigator carefully lifts it using a clear adhesive sheet in a realistic crime lab setting. Step 2. Computer search. A forensic computer lab. A scanned fingerprint appears on a large monitor, then quickly compares against rows of fingerprint images in a national database. The screen highlights several possible matches as the examiner looks on. Step 3. Expert examination. A close-up of a fingerprint expert at a desk examining the fingerprints side by side on a monitor. The expert zooms in on the ridges and unique points, circling them with a digital pen while studying carefully. And final step, which is evaluation. If the fingerprints match, investigators can directly link a suspect to the crime scene. If they don't, or if the print is unclear, the case moves forward with other evidence.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us create more content for you.